World economy decoupling, is it going to happen or not? It is already happening. It is already happening in the numbers, and this is the challenge that European countries are facing. Let's look at the graph. What is happening? We have basically negative GDP growth for all Western countries except China, where the IMF predicts around 2 point something. I actually think this is quite conservative. China would probably grow by 3%. So if we move on, we have to think that some of the European countries like Italy and Germany have a higher reliance on export. And this means that we are caught into a situation. On one hand, Italy would also like to have an economy that relies on domestic demand. On the other hand, domestic demand is going to be weak, so we have to rely on export. In the long term, we would like to detach ourselves from domestic demand, just like it happened in the case of China. Let's look at what has happened, and maybe a few people know that since 2010 until now, China export to GDP ratio has gone down from roughly 26% to the 18% today. Instead, Italy has seen its value of export to GDP growing almost to 31%. So this curve have inverted. So China has already done its decoupling from the world, making its economy more reliant on domestic demand, less on exports. Italy, unfortunately, with the weak domestic demand over the last 20 years, since the entrance of the euro, has only been able to sustain the GDP thanks to this growth in export, which has made the economy, let's say, float for 2 decades, but now it has made our economy rely too much on external demand and therefore exposed to external shocks. So what do we need to do? We have a problem here, long-term versus short-term goals. In the short term, we have to unfortunately continue to rely on export, and that's why I suggest what I call it a core and a satellite strategy. The core strategy is that where we need to continue to maintain export with our European partners and the United States that represent more than half of our total export. Strong but little growth. That's the core part. The satellite is we need to expand more aggressively into Asian markets where we don't do very well, but where the growth prospects are much higher. So on one hand, maintain current share in the European Union and in the West, in the US, and at the same time push into Asia. And this is again a tactical decision, short term, to get export to make our economy survive a little bit longer, while at the same time we implement a policy to stimulate domestic demand that would kick in after 5 years. So we are caught into this dilemma, and this is why I think this core and satellite strategy could be one possible solution to get an antibiotic for the time being while we wait for the cure for the true long-term problem.